because of the smile that fills the faces of the citizens, our nice good weather, and nature that sustains us all, that enables us all to continue each in their own way, because we are all different, even according to each individual's work. But what joins us to become one person is the sweetness from the flavored drink Alleluia Jingati drink and Alleluia Tamarind drink. The flavor that quenches your thirst while at the same time treating and healing your body, because it is 100% natural. Enjoy the drink that has got the tamarind juice in it. Made by Alleluia Reflexology, Healthy Solutions and Nutritional Research Center Limited. Get yourself a bottle of Alleluia from all shops around.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
A wonderful morning to you and welcome to Good Morning Uganda, 14th October 2021. Delighted we are to be here on yet another special day. Now this morning we wake up to reflections. Reflections is something that you do, sort of meditation, reflecting on a particular moment, reflecting on a particular decision, reflecting on a particular choice that is right in front of you. But as of this morning, when we speak of reflections, we are speaking about Chibande. Chibande is a 40-year-old gorilla that is in Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, and because of Chibande, a photographer from Kuwait named Majid Ali has won Wildlife Photographer of the Year for having taken a peaceful photo of a gorilla in Uganda while it was having its moment of reflection. Of course, they're going to be giving us a picture on the screen in that regard, but when you look at how peaceful Chibande is, you get to admire the stance in which he is. And guess what? Over a stretch of a month is how this photo was eventually captured. And he recalls, as he was on the journey to this particular capturing of this photography, Kuwait photographer Majid Ali states that he had to climb higher and higher, and the higher he climbed, the hotter it became, the more humid it was. But eventually, when the cooling rains came down, Chibande was in the open, and guess what Chibande did? He did not duck. Chibande stayed in the open and allowed the rains to shower him, and he closed his eyes to reflect on the rain upon his skin. Imagine a gorilla doing just that. Isn't that amazing? Well, meet Chibande, 40 years of age, and guess what? He is one of many eastern gorillas that we do have here in Uganda, and you can only find them at an altitude of 1,400 meters above sea level, and so it's a very hard one to capture. But this man captured it, and he has brought a light of reflection onto Uganda and our tourism sector. Imagine if we had many more of these showcasing the beauty that we have. We will definitely be far in terms of the tourism attractions, but also in terms of remuneration, the dollars, the pounds, the yens that come in. And that is a photo of Mr. Chibande, peaceful, graceful, and in the rain. How many of you can actually stand in the rain and have reflections? Well, Good Morning Uganda starts off with a peaceful reflection, and we get to remind you that you need to sometime just sit down, relax and reflect on life the way Chibande is doing it. Even amidst COVID-19, you still need to take a step back and then rewrite your story. Well, we are rewriting the story for yet another day here on Good Morning Uganda with my colleagues. Good morning to you, Robert Kirabo.
Good morning, Priscilla. I must say I love your dress. I see the Africanity in you being displayed very well, and that is the passion for who you are and being an African woman. And when we talk about Chibande and reflecting, one thing that comes to my mind, that is the essence where we should keep on promoting both domestic and international tourism. That sometimes you need to go out of your usual place, go to some place somewhere and have that quiet, peaceful reflection. It could be just going to the zoo. It could be going to the national park, a place where you can have some time to think. I'm just thinking, what was Chibande thinking about amidst the rain and all that? I'm not a gorilla, but I know if you look at human genes, there is at least something biology to some level. There is the ape and all that. So whatever it was reflecting on, it is very important that you too find a time. And you can only do this when you embrace domestic tourism. Many packages are coming up once in a while. Go to these places. Imagine a man from Kuwait having the beauty when you might find someone within that locality. They have never even seen any of these gorillas.
Okay. Yesterday, Molin Kenyana assured us that it was going to be a sunny day, but the rains did come down nevertheless. As the rains came down for Chibande, he decided to enjoy it and rather close his eyes and take in the feeling of the rain on his skin. Good morning to you, Molin Kenyana, and tell us about your reflections.
Good morning to you, Priscilla, and of course, good morning to our viewers here at Good Morning Uganda. Well, I never really assured you that it wasn't going to rain all day. I only assured you that it wasn't going to rain in the morning. The forecast was clear, and it's always a 6-hour forecast that we give here on Good Morning Uganda, clearly saying it's going to be a mix of clouds and sunshine. And guess what? It was just crystal mix of clouds and sunshine. So later in the evening, I don't know where you are, where the rains got you, but that you should have consulted me and like, okay, so how about in the evening? So you might want to do that next time and be like, okay, so
all
yes,
right.
it's clear in the morning, but
thank you so much. Felix Nkunda, you join us. We're so delighted to have you. Picking it up from reflections on life, inspired by Chibande. For some odd reason, you standing next to that picture, no
makes me look like Chibande.
Sort of as if, you know, you're relative.
our ancestors, you know. Yeah. Very nice, very nice, very nice guys.
Well, there's probably the reflection should be on where I came from.
True.
I should be reflecting on where I came from and how far we have evolved to turn out to be much better looking Chibandes than the actual Chibande. But I know that is a fact. Everyone is better the way they are. Everyone is good with how God created them. But nevertheless, good morning to you all. I hope you guys are okay. And clearly, it's another new day. It's another beautiful day. Another day that gives us an opportunity to become new people.
Okay.
To refresh ourselves, our minds, and probably our lives as well.
I'm going to ask Felix to just give us a sneak peek into how people are actually reacting to reflections. The photo of Chibande, a 40-year-old gorilla here in Uganda, Windy Impenetrable Park. Felix?
Well, there are a couple of reactions, and as it is, as a matter of fact, Priscilla, between you and me, it's quite exciting, and mostly for people in Uganda per se, because how do you relate with such a photo? You see, photography is like, people who take photos normally say that photos speak.
Yes.
And it's, there's a connection.
Yeah. The photos get the moment to freeze.
Yes.
For time, actually.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Like you keep the moment alive.
Yes.
Like how people go for weddings and then you take those photos. I've seen most recently there are lots of birthdays. I don't know why. So, but anyway, looking at how people are reacting to this, we'll be looking at some of those. And this beautiful portrait called Under Rain was taken by Majid Ali, you said, and the winner of the same Wildlife Photographer of the Year award have been revealed, and they are spectacular. So some of the reactions of the people, we look at Wildlife Photographer of the Year. Congratulations to Majid Ali from Kuwait. This year, Animal Portrait category winner. Majid trekked for 4 hours to meet Chibande, almost 40 years old, and a mountain gorilla as cooling rain began. I think this is the story that we looked at earlier. And I don't know if there are any more reactions there from different people. Of course, his winning entry, named Reflection, was a photo of Chibande at 40-year-old mountain gorilla from southwestern Uganda. This is totally beautiful image, and congratulations. Of course, same, all are just about congratulations, clearly also taking into cognizance of the mighty Uganda. Once one man said was a pearl of Africa.
Okay, and it is still the Pearl of Africa. So for tourists, you're most welcome to visit Uganda anytime, most especially now. Of course, the COVID-19 restrictions are very, very well observed in our national parks and every national tourist site that causes attraction to the rest of the world. So that is nothing for you to worry about. We welcome you from all over the world into the Pearl of Africa. Also, we welcome you once again to Good Morning Uganda. It is 39 minutes past 6 a.m. in the morning, and you can follow this conversation on our YouTube channel, which is UBC Television Uganda, on Twitter at UBC TV Uganda, and on Facebook, UBC TV. But of course, the day has a lot in store for you, and we have planned a lot ourselves. We have to take you through the fast stories that have captured the hearts of people, talkability in the last 24 hours, both locally and internationally, starting off with the local stories.
And we'll begin by looking at COVID-19, the pandemic, and how we're doing as a country, but also how we have risked to the extent that this calls for government intervention, where Ministry of Health has set up response teams to deal with the escalating COVID-19 cases in Kampala, Teso, Acholi, and Lango. The increase is attributed to mass gatherings, burials, weekly markets, and weddings. The administration of vaccine remains low across the country. However, by December 2021, the 4.8 target population shall have been vaccinated.
As mass vaccination against COVID-19 continues, thousands have turned up for the exercise in the last 2 days for the COVID jab. However, people with disabilities, especially those with hearing impairments, have faced communication challenges for interpreting the COVID-19 consent form.
And looking at the education sector, last our lawmakers, a section of members of parliament want government to urgently come up with a custom-based recovery plan for private education schools to address the economic constraints associated with COVID-19 pandemic. They also want government to carry out a census to establish how many schools are most likely not to reopen due to financial stress. The petitioners yesterday met the Education Committee of Parliament to justify their call.
A hot debate everywhere in Uganda. Former President Forum for Democratic Change Party, Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, has challenged Ugandans to put political differences aside, unite and come out with a common voice for development of the country. Dr. Kizza Besigye was speaking as chief mourner during the burial of the fallen former member of parliament for the then Madi Okolo County, late John Drazu Arumadri, who has been one of the founders of Forum for Democratic Change.
And away from politics, we now look at disaster management, where little funding and understaffing have been cited as the major reason for government's delayed response to emergency situations. This underscores the need for annual budget and recruitment of field personnel for proper disaster management. Minister for Disaster Preparedness and Refugees, Engineer Hilary Onek, said the current rains will continue up to December 2021, which may come with disastrous effects.
But also, they will come with some steadiness, so there's some positive coming out of the rain. Away from that, the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, Jessica Alupo, has challenged members of the cabinet to embrace teamwork to ensure effective service delivery. Alupo urged ministers to avoid cliques and uphold the recently taken oath of secrecy to avoid jeopardizing government's quest for Uganda's development. She was speaking during the opening of ministers' induction and retreat held at Kololo Ceremonial Grounds in Kampala.
Now crossing over to international stories, our first story will be in Kongbang, where we see several people killed in bow and arrow attack in Norway. Now 5 people have been killed and 2 more injured in Norway after a man used a bow and arrow to attack them. Police first received word on attack in the town of Kongbang southwest of the capital Oslo at around 18:13 local time. Now, a Danish man aged 37 has been arrested on suspicion of carrying out an attack, but police believe he acted alone and will investigate whether it was an act of terrorism, a spokesperson said. Now, the Prime Minister Anne Solberg also said that this incident has been very much horrifying. Now, still about the same, we're looking at Myanmar, where we see a living hell, churches, clergy targeted by Myanmar military. Now, last month, Myanmar soldiers gunned down, that is a Cheng Biak Ham, a 30-year-old Baptist pastor, while he rushed to help put out a fire caused by military shelling. Now, as his town, the Thanglang, Myanmar's northwest, the Chin state, went up in flames, and soldiers sawed off the pastor's finger and stole his wedding ring. Now, the killing of Chang Biang also causes humiliations, and finger demonstrations extend the disrespect and brutality which also comes with this new military rule. Now, the September 19 incident is one of the least 20 cases documented by human rights groups and the media in which Christian churches and church leaders and volunteers have been targeted or caught in crossfire with military. Now, back to Africa, another sad story where we see Kenyan long-distance runner Agnes Tiripot, there a two-time World Championship bronze medalist, has been found dead at her home and apartment in Kenya. Now, Athletic Kenya said on Wednesday it had been informed of Tiripot's death. This lady was 25 years old, and Tiripot was found dead in her home in Iten after she was allegedly stabbed by her husband. We are still working around to unearth more details surrounding her demise. The Athletic Association of Kenya made this statement. Now, Kenya has lost a jewel who was one of the fastest rising athletic giants on the international stage, thanks to her eye-catching performance on the track. It's a very sad story.
Well, away from that, we look more on the international scene. Our News Corp climate campaign pledged positive stories only. News Corp Australia has launched its Mission Zero series of articles with the kind of stories on the benefits of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and the risks of climate change that other outlets have been running for an age. Now, this campaign across Murdoch-owned metropolitan tabloids is news because they have been a major conduit for climate science denial and capping about emissions reductions and greenies for decades. What you won't find here is any partisan sniping or politicizing of what is mainstream national and international issue that affects all of us both environmentally and economically, the campaign said. Perhaps the major reason that action on climate change has so repeatedly stalled in this country is that the debate has fallen victim to a culture of constant complaint that nothing is ever good enough and everything is too little too late. Only positive stories would get a run under the Mission Zero banner, the campaign's introduction said. Also excluded apparently are any mea culpas. Wednesday's big campaign story was an interview with the National Secretary of Australian Workers' Union, Daniel Walton, saying the country's agreement to develop nuclear submarines should kickstart a nuclear power sector in the country. Well, gone are the days when media was not allowed to talk about climate change. Like, people weren't bold enough to speak about this topic, but now we see more and more people in the media coming out with campaigns like this. It's kind of hope.
Policy or issues of governance, or probably also any form of campaign. Clearly, if you have the media on board, that's a good one. But of course, still lagging back about the story of that is Tirop, the athletic from Kenya. I don't know if there be any comments from Robert and Priscilla, but myself, I find that it's very, very painful.
It's a sad, moment.
It's very sad.
Well, there's not much you can say because it's a sad story, and the tragedy of it is that, you know, it's in nature of a homicide. someone choosing to deliberately take another person's life, which is sad in itself, especially for rising stars in the world of athletics. May her soul rest in peace, and may justice be served in respect of and in honor of what she has contributed, not just to Kenya, but East Africa, Africa, and the whole world in terms of sprinters.
Well, I can say it's a very trying moment for the people in Kenya, for her family and the loved ones, and we continue to call upon all efforts aimed at reducing issues of domestic violence. All platforms where they can be resolved amicably before the worst comes to the worst is what we push for. May her soul rest in eternal peace. But like Molin talked about nature, we also come to you with a drink that is aimed at boosting your immune system, where nature is at its best, because some of the things that you cannot get have been gotten. The ginger, the turmeric, for you at the same time, condensed and packaged in this bottle to boost your immune system. So at just 1,500, go to the next supermarket and shop and ask for Hallelujah Ginger Tea or Hallelujah Turmeric drink. These will do you great, more so at such a time when, of course, rains come with a lot of complications, and usually the immune system of the body is low. So you can only do that by taking Hallelujah Ginger Tea and turmeric drinks, which will boost your immune system.
All right, as we definitely continue with Good Morning Uganda, we do have Molin Kenyana who will be giving us a report later on weather, nature and climate. Our newsreel is coming up, and of course the day is going to be crowned up at 8:30 with Ruben Pima Chibirango, starting off with the story of Kirabo there as he gives us a sports update into this day's sports affairs. But our poll question this morning is as
in the city as KCCA plans on improvements in Kampala. What would you want to see improve in the city as KCCA plans on improvements in Kampala? Hit our social media platforms, that is on Twitter, hashtag UBCGMU, WhatsApp 0709602592, and Facebook, and as well you can leave your message on our YouTube page there.
Okay, all right. So yourself, Felix, what would you want to see change in our city, Kampala?
Well, I would want these guys to organize their enforcement. I hate seeing people harass other human beings. I hate that. It's unsightly. I have one time seen them throw a woman on a pickup. I've seen one time that we have had one person died one time because of KCCA enforcement. Yeah. I've seen them eat these poor vendors things, throw them around. I think we can do better. For me, even if you build skyscrapers, good roads, and you cannot relate with humans, well, I find that very, very gullible.
Okay, all right. Molin Kenyan, what would you like to see change in your city, Kampala?
Well, I would want to see more rooftops with green coverage. Yes, we're putting up new buildings every day, but how about we try to tone it down and reduce on the power consumption within these buildings? That is by making the rooftops really green. So that is something that I'm looking forward to.
Of the city hall. There is overkill at Communications House.
The buildings that have done that.
But this is the new era.
Church House.
Just next to Church House, if you look at that building that is that once had Crane Bank, Sudale's building, on top of it, you see green.
Yeah.
The number of trees there are on
All
top
growing
of the
cities
building.
are now considering green
point.
rooftops. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really
So we go to Church House.
Yeah.
Feneo Church House.
No, actually, for now, you do the iron sheets and you put the lights, and then it becomes a harvesting center for
trees, I think, or species of plants that do that, that are put up, not the traditional Fena and Miembe or Felix.
Okay. Yeah, what would you like to see change in this
I want to see the roads improved. You know, when you're traveling from up country, the roads are so good.
I know, right?
You can even doze off in case you have a driver. But once you
even
hear,
arrive faster than
but once you hear bangs,
That is how you know you've entered
we've
Kampala.
entered Kampala.
By the way,
So-
honest, let me just pause you there. A true story. You know, every festive season we travel as a family. So in high school, we were coming from Kanangara Islands. So we did the Masaka route coming back from Nyendo. So we got from the boat, we got into our vehicles, and then, you know, we did the Masaka drive. We slept off because of the tiredness and the fatigue from the trip, but the only way we got to know that we are in Kampala when you started to hear pa 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 pa, and even the air becomes hotter the closer you come to the city.
Yeah, so if they can improve roads, and of that rain seasons, we are losing people. These are left manholes.
The drainage
and
systems.
Yes, people, you can't know that it's there, and we've seen a number of lives. Even this very month, we've lost a person still due to those. So if they can improve the roads, why would it take me, you're driving from Masaka to Kampala, and takes you maybe about a few hours, but from Kampala, just you enter, it will take you longer.
What they're going to tell you is that roads out of the city are national roads. Roads within the city are city roads. So national roads are catered to by UNRWA. City roads are supposed to be apparently catered to by the likes of KCCA, which has begged the question of merging ministries so that roads are roads under one ministry. And that is a growing conversation, continued conversation. We hope that that merger can actually eventually work out. But we're not limiting it to Kampala City, because UBC, we inspire all of Uganda. And I know that all of Ugandans waking up watching Good Morning Uganda to this morning, you are coming from different cities, Jinja City, Arua City, Fort Portal, you're coming from Bara, Masaka, you're coming in from Gulu City. So we want to hear Mbale City. So we want to hear from every city that you are in. What are those changes that you want to see going forward? But speaking of going forward, we also have to go forward with the programming into our 7 o'clock hour with our newsreel. But for now, we'll leave you with the song for the day.
UBC Studios in Kampala.
My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda. My home, oh my Uganda.
I know with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home, under the sun so bright, under the moon at night, on my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey mama,
My Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda, my Uganda. Nigokona, my Uganda. Amari, alemira, my Uganda,
nyoe nikugonza.
my Uganda,
Amina ngojo, Amina ngojo.
my Uganda.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting
Is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning to you once again. 3 minutes past 7 a.m. on 14th of October 2021. Delighted to be in your company this morning as you're preparing for your day, sipping on your cup of coffee, sending that email, but more so getting ready to get out of the house. If you're on the road, I trust that you are streaming live with us on our YouTube channel, which is UBC Television Uganda, or even Facebook. We're streaming live on UBC TV, but you can catch up on these conversations, particular statements on our Twitter handle at UBC TV Uganda. My name is Priscilla Nalwoga, and welcome to yet another grand hour in Good Morning Uganda. Alongside me is Robert Kirabo and Felix Nkunda. But before we go any further, we want to revert back to our poll question this morning, and we want to find out from you in that regard.
And our poll question: want to see improve in the city as KCCA plans on improvements in Kampala? And that's from that point I will be able to receive and hear your sentiments and your thoughts, opinions about how you want to see your capital city look better or improved.
Okay. For our friends, our followers, brothers and sisters outside of Kampala, just delete Kampala and put your city wherever it is that you are in this Uganda. We definitely want to find out those expected changes from your heart. Away from that, we now turn our attention to a newsreel, a growing conversation on awareness and the challenges that are befitting teenagers as we continue to fight against COVID-19. In the earlier stance of COVID-19, the first 12 months shaped it for teenagers in such a way that they believed school was going to be normal, or it was a far-fetched story, to the extent that teenagers were turned into casual laborers. We do have high numbers of teenage pregnancies that were registered in many parts of Uganda, especially in the rural parts of Uganda. We also do have other challenges that were faced by teenagers. Basically, it is that sect of society that is not really being catered for or looked after or ignored, for that matter, amidst COVID-19 and, you know, the essential groups. And this morning, we want to remind ourselves of how essential this particular group is. Why? Because if you look at the population of Uganda, out of the over 47 million people in Uganda, you do have 3/4 of that being young people, and more so teenagers between 12 and 17 years of age, who are also struggling to be able to keep their face up and survive amidst COVID-19. They are out of school for the longest time, and they've not been able to be given consideration when it comes to vaccination drives that are happening right now. And so where is their safety? Where is their mental health? Where is their physical health? All these things that we want to put into question as we look at evaluation of teenagers' safety amidst the COVID-19. But we want to first look at the evolving challenges that have encompassed these young people. And I'll start with Felix. What would you regard as those challenges that have evolved in this time of COVID for these teenagers?
Well, you see, when you talk about teenagers, their challenges or things that face them as being teenagers, for that matter, are neverly common. For example, at a national spectrum, you would look at aspects of governance, and that would trickle into the legal regimes of NSCVDT. For example, we previously were looking at the laws in relation to harassment, that would be sexual or physical, which has been the most identical amidst the COVID-19. We've seen cases of defilement go up tremendously. We've seen cases of rape, and easily also cases of teenage pregnancies. So at the spectrum of a national level, or that which would later on be turned into the legal relation or administration, at that level, administrative level, government administrative level, we have those challenges. When you go to issues of, when you go at the level of social, at the social level, you wouldn't be surprised to see what we call deterrency and retardation in terms of mental capacity. And this entirely trickles into the concept of education. What would be and what is. You know, as a matter of fact, that people who should be in S4 today are in S2. People who should be in S6 are still in S4 or S3 or what. Now, all this in its own self is a retardation, that we are seeing a particular sector of people in society who have gone back. And that catching up with that time alone may never happen, because you see more teenagers today engaged in what we call workspaces. And definitely that would mean informal workspaces. Now, how do you turn back these people into systems like education and what? So at the social level, you're looking at that. But also still at the social level, one of the other aspects at the national administrative level will cross over, where you're going to have teenage mothers. At a social level, what is the effect of that? You're going to see more poverty. You're going to see more low life level appreciation. You're going to see poor sanitation. You're going to see poor, basically all these things still cross over. Now, when you go to family, if you want to pick out the aspect of family in terms of social challenges, you're going to see unable families come most on plate. Like, you're having teenage parents and what can they do in terms of that. Now that again will speak into the kind of children they are going to raise. Now when you put some of these things, a piece of them together, you find that you are harboring a very challenging generation that is angry, that is annoyed, that is lacking both physical, psychological, just to mention but a few, and many other things. So these are the major challenges, if in my opinion, at the spectrum of the national administration, society, family, and you can even take it to schools. The gap, how do you cover the gap, the academic gap in these times? So as we highlight some of these challenges, you'll notice that they have long-term effects. It means that the burden will fall greater back to government administration into terms of budgeting. It means you're going to have higher expenses in hospitals because of the kind of kids that are going to be malnourished, and why? Because they can't feed them. So you're simply increasing wider on the informal sector, and informal at that stage to be also liability. So for me, I would look at it in that kind of
Okay. The challenges that Felix is highlighting, majorly, you'd see them more in rural areas. The urban centers are, faced with different challenges for teenagers. One of the challenges growing constantly is the presence of domestic violence in homes and communities, but also pornography, the access to internet, because for them, somehow, somewhere, they can access medias, different forms of media, and they are now trapped into the gap of being exposed to things that will then cause them to make funny decisions, either get into early sexual activity, or you actually see them doing drugs.
Well, Priscilla, like Felix said, mentioned a number of challenges, but for me, one of the things that I find at such a time is us understanding this particular group we are dealing with. The teenagers, that is about from 13 to about 18 years, you'll find that why this particular stage is very complicated. Because even biologically, the body itself is undergoing key transformations. If it is a girl, there's so much that is happening. The development of breasts, the hips, everything. So she's also, first of all, struggling to understand
what is happening
to her body. If it is a boy, the voice is changing, beards are coming up, some muscles. He's also struggling, first and foremost, to understand, hey, what is happening? There is so much about that. And now, that is the group you're discussing. That coupled with that biological problem that has its impact and implications on the body, this stage is a bit disturbed. So now, what comes in, for example, I was reading a report by UNICEF, and they are saying 25% of teenage girls in Uganda have their first birth before the age of 19 years. And close to half of these are married off. This is a quarter of our population, because they estimate teenagers to be about 9 million in Uganda. That is about a quarter of our population. So that shows how serious we should take these issues when discussing them.
Okay.
Because the future of any nation lies in the coming generation. If about 9 million of your population is not handled very well and goes to the West, then that means what Uganda are you going to have?
Yeah.
Social, economic impacts are going to be very fond of the next generation. So we should give it due diligence. But for me, I want to look at responsibilities. You see, a child begins from a family. Do we still have strong family units? One of the units that has been dismantled, yet it's fundamental, is family in Uganda today. Both the cultural element of it, of what a family is, the religious aspect of it, those have been disturbed and disorganized. And yet everybody, the family is the smallest unit of any civil society. So how do we position the family to perfect its roles that it used to do in raising a child? Then we go to community. Previously, we are told a child belonged to a community. That Priscilla would be coming from school, eating mangoes, throwing it, and someone would speak to Priscilla, maybe even punish Priscilla. The community would feel they own this child, and this child will feel responsible to the community. In case there is maybe working on a well, it was community-based. So how does community gain its stance in ensuring, in raising? You talked about challenges in urban areas. Yes, pornography. You go to a cafe, these youth are there, they are watching, and people are seeming not bothered, they're not my kids. come to the most challenging factor in urban areas today, drugs. Many children of well-to-do people, it's not about poverty, it's not about lack of education, they lack nothing, they're in those mansions wasted. These teenagers, drugs have wasted them. Go to Butabika Rehabilitation Center. You're going to find there's that private wing. Young
Just
lads.
for teenagers, yes.
Full of teenagers. You see big, expensive cars coming in. What are you doing here? My son is under rehabilitation. So, but the community, they will know where these drugs are being sold, and they'll... So how do we position community? Then finally, government. What laws do we have in place when drugs are easily accessible on our market? Go to this thing called card, Mairunji. It is sold. What laws do we have? Local authorities, what laws do we have that we can ensure we do not make drugs very affordable, very accessible? What are we putting in place that as punishments? How do we investigate these cases? How do you ensure? Felix talked about the fathers that impregnate these teenagers. How do we foster deterrence that a person will fear to purchase the drugs, a person will fear to expose this pornography that is everywhere, a person will fear to touch a girl under the age of 18, knowing that yes, this is criminal. When my neighbor did it, he's serving maybe 30 life imprisonment in Ruzira. So if those three approaches, family, community, and government, in terms of regulation and policies, our teenagers will be safe, whether it is COVID or after COVID.
Okay, all right. So COVID-19 brought up so many things. It actually unearthed the things that we had been ignoring, or rather not looking at, especially when it comes to one of the units that Robert has mentioned. That's the family unit. If we all know, before 2020, the mindset was that the community you're referring to is a school community. So it's family and school community. And parents raising their children believed that no, the children are going to be picking up skills. They're going to be trained and groomed for life in school. But come COVID-19, as far as education, we barely had any continuous education happening, and it's on a pause right now. Uncertainty is still looming around the education sector, which has opened up the reality that parents had given up their roles of parenting and nurturing their children to be good civil citizens of this country, and they had given it to the teachers. And now that the teachers are not able to play that part, parents have been blaming the teachers. And teachers, especially on Teachers' Day, when we were celebrating Teachers' Day earlier on, the teachers came out to boldly say that these are not our children. We are simply here to educate your children. But the role of parenting, disciplining, nurturing is entirely on the parent. We come in as secondary helpers, which is something that needs to, a drum roll that needs to be, given out to parents. So looking at that assessment or evaluation of that realization that parents have thrown out their tools, to the rest of the world to be able to handle their own children, and now their own children are under them and they cannot even manage the situations in their homes.
You see, when you talk about a child, a teenager is still a child at that, depending on your definition. There is no way you don't talk about the parent. It is correct for us to actually heap all the blame to the parent because they stand in a place that is primary to the upbringing of this child. And we have gotten into a misunderstanding of upbringing. We have had a conflict of upbringing and wealth. And I find that also quite cheap, that people have thought that raising a child must be related to being wealthy. I can tell you as a matter of fact that many of us today did not grow up in very wealthy families, and many other brothers and sisters out there. But the only wealth that can be traded between a child and a parent is values. I know for a fact that many families struggle, many colleagues struggle because of the absence of values. It comes to the plate of having parents who have nothing to offer because probably they got nothing.
You can only give what you have.
It's as simple as that. In a country where you have an increasing number of teenage mothers, in a country where you're having an increasing number of absent fathers, and in a country where you're having an increasing number of absence of law against anything wrong, or what one normally wants to call impunity, you expect absence of values in terms of raising children. We shall talk about government and the laws. We shall talk about communities, but we must talk about parents in the discussion of teenagers. We must talk about parents. And why? There is no person who has better will for a child than a parent. That I grew up knowing. And for us in Uganda, or traditionally, we used to say that Teddy ayinza kwagala mwana kusinga gwe. You get the point? That in fact we have very many sayings around that. And it is not just enough to say I love my son Robert or my daughter Priscilla. It is not just enough. I think we have gone into an era where it is easy to say than easy to do. We have been deceived, and as my brother Robert said earlier, was talking about the issue of how things were done, community and what. You see, as yesterday we were talking about politics and trends. Life is about trends. Maybe that's no longer possible. But how do we use the current situation to get the best out of it? We're talking about ICT every day. How do we use ICT as a tool of good nurturing, not as a tool of destruction? Priscilla talked about pornography. How do we use the current trends? Because we can't say that we are going to keep into the 80s.
It's going to be ignorant of
where we are.
Of where we are.
Exactly.
Yes.
We must be able to move.
Felix has mentioned something very important, that we must find modern ways
evolve
of doing this,
of raising kids.
Because most of the times what people don't know is that some of these basics we are neglecting. I was attending some conference, was about adolescents and drugs, but one gentleman spoke to us and told us that today you can be in a community, you have a fence, you have the CCTV cameras, you have the dogs, but that child next to you is going to become the problem to you. Because maybe you think
the danger is within your house.
The danger is within your house. What will happen if you help that child and they have better ways? He told us in his village they were farmers and he had cattle, but they were continuously stealing his cows. So he began by giving the suspects. He thought each a cow, he began to extend a cow. You give. Because everyone now owned a cow. The theft of cows was no more. So some of the things we think we are neglecting today, that, well, I've educated my children.
That's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah.
I have the fence. I even have a weapon.
That's key.
They are going to get you. They are going to rape your girl outside your fence when she's coming from university at night. So this is how important.
And even still about the evolvement, that we cannot fight growth. We can't say that we are going to become enemies of growth or changes. Because as they used to tell us in school, if you don't change, definitely change will have to do the change.
Change will have to change you.
There is no way, there is no way we can still blame growth. We can't blame growth. As a matter of fact, we must appreciate it and get the best out of it. People talk about ICT lately, but ICT has more goods than bad. For example, if people talk about pornography, but pornography is a choice. Before you get to watching it, it's in the mind.
Okay.
But again, if you want to regulate it, there are ways. Like how they turn off WhatsApp. I've never had government say we are turning off pornography for the weekend or for the month.
The way they turn off Facebook.
They will turn off Facebook. I think we are misplacing the arguments. It means maybe there are people who benefit out of it, or there are people who have to watch it also who should make these laws. But that is on the side. So I think we just have to learn how to use our most recent positions to get the best out of them.
Okay.
Imagine today we're talking at Zoom, Google Meet, ABCD. We need them. Imagine if we didn't have such forums in times of COVID. We'd be talking about communal 80s and what. So I think for me the problem is that we must learn to move with the trends, but seek the best out of the changing trends of life, and that's a matter of fact.
Okay, how best can we help teenagers to actually handle the mental changes that they're going through, the physical changes that they're going through amidst the actual change, which is COVID-19?
First, we must empower the family. the family has the basic and the powers to do this to a greater level. Second, even our education, we must have more of understanding this group and have teachers, because we know school is going to reopen, and of late parents think it's all about providing school fees and all that. But how have we positioned the school where our children now spend most of the time to ensure they shape, to ensure, we used to have people like senior women in schools, we had the men also had some, or senior master, something like that. But these were targeting in instilling values, teaching these people how their bodies are changing, what they should avoid. Of late, the education system is running so much into marks and passing that some of these core values in the education chain, we are losing them. It's all about which school has performed best in Wachiso, in Mtinda, in Igulu, and now the teaching is tailor-made at that, not these key values that are important in raising the next generation.
Okay, I'm turning to you, Felix Nkunda, and I know you have practiced this, the young people around you, introducing them to other forms of education in the current times, such as baking, that is helping them. One, it's acting as a distraction, but then again, it's keeping them focused, and later on, they will be, you know, very, very fruitful citizens. When they get to campus, they probably know how to handle money, how to start a business, how to engage in all these opportunities, simply because of introduction of informal forms of education now as teenagers. What has been your success story and your encouragement to parents, society, and community?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, Priscilla, that it's now time for us to adjust our muzzles in terms of where our aims are. When you look at Uganda, clearly everything is changing. I can tell you, as a matter of fact, very few years from now, if you remember the time where we used to line up in banks, I don't know if you people ever paid school fees at Stanbic when it used to be at Cham Tower. They would make us line up under there in the basement, and then you would have to go there by 6. Then you pay the money like around 11 a.m. Now, there was that time. We would sit there, then they give you numbers. I remember an askari would come, then they take you. You would sit in the basement, like over 300 people. Now, after that, they take you in the hall. You also sit like about 200. Now, you have a card. They give you a card. Number 32, number 100. That, when I was at Shimoni, that's what used to happen. I think at the time when I was in Lubiri. Now, today, if I want to pay my toddlers, it only takes me get my phone, and I'm thinking, okay, how much? Maybe about $1, and I pay.
Send.
What am I saying? The speed at which life is changing needs people to be faster than the speed. It means that the treasures of livelihood are no longer hidden in the cardinal practices of life. It is no longer fashionable, by the way, and this I say without fear of contradiction, to be a lawyer alone. It is no longer fashionable. It is no longer fashionable to be a doctor in Uganda, because there are over 1 million doctors. It is no longer fashionable to be a journalist, because today we have over 30 TVs. Previously, my brother here used to work at UTV and maybe others. It was fashionable for the likes of Senior Wana. By then, it was fashionable because he was one journalist in the whole of maybe Mutundwe. By the time the Rubens joined, he would go back to Biko, and it was a big deal. But today, people are journalists by phone. By phone. We report a story. Today we've been doing stories of, is it Chivende or something like that? And so what I'm saying is, you must appreciate the changing trends to stay relevant. Now, what do I mean? Being a journalist and a baker is a good thing. You get the point. I remember the former ED, the cake lady.
That is
Jennifer Musisi. Yes.
She was one of the biggest cake makers in Kampala.
It still is.
And still is, as Priscilla put it. But imagine you have, because now schools have been closed, universities have been closed. Now, for 2 years, what have the teenagers learned?
Yeah.
All we talk about, havana bagedde de waka. Uhu mwana ageze. Goye kata yenka na mama we. So what? Who feeds on mugejo? Now, it takes a concerned parent, it brings us back to the aspect of interest, to say, in the 2 years, on top of her being a procurement student, she has learned how to make chapati. That's a life skill. She has learned how to drive. That's why I tell you that it is not good enough for you to be a lawyer and you can't drive.
I agree.
Honestly. And you want to. That's why, because of growing trends, many jobs are being eradicated. And one time I said on TV that it's going to come a time where we don't need secretaries in office. And someone was very angry at me, a friend of mine.
That time is already here because now you have
I manage my
artificial
appointments.
intelligence.
Yes. I manage my appointments. I everything. Let me tell you, it's going to come a time where we don't need fuel pump attendants.
Yes.
Whoever saw ATMs?
No.
And even today they are also being phased out. When did you learn the last time you went to an ATM?
I don't remember. Just do it on your phone because you can move from your account to your phone to the next person. Yeah.
Thank you. And even it's on record that you see mobile money operations triple bank operations in a daily. What does that mean? Convenience.
So at such a time, when you look at that,
must have value added. If you can't add value to your toddlers, to your teenagers, even to yourselves as parents, because now, even if you're 60, you have to use a smartphone. That's the dictate of life. Even if you don't want, you have to have a smartphone. Now, a 60-year-old, you must mean you have to go. That's what one of my friends says. We must learn, relearn, and unlearn.
Okay.
So, for me, I think
right.
that's key in these days.
Thank you so much. Just to crown up this conversation, teenagers, their health is at stake, yes, but also their mental state is needing of any form of help. And as Felix has rightly put it, help them create distractions, teach them something outside of what they expected to learn as young people. But also you can find other ways that you can connect with them. If your natural routine has not been working with them, find another alternative way. Consult from fellow parents. Those that have been there, done it now. There's WhatsApp groups, there's Facebook groups on how to parent in such times like these. Please adopt to the changes and ensure that you find other ways to communicate to your teenager, but also help your teenager understand that the anxiety that they're going through is completely normal. We have all been there and we have survived, we have grown through it. And so allow them, but also I like to say that parents, make it personal when you're trying to relate with your child. Show them your journey also as a teenager. Open up. You know, when you open up, they realize that you're not a god. Hey, you're also a human being.
Priority.
Yeah.
What is happening today, I've seen many fathers who say, I provide the school fees, I pay the rent, I provide the money. So make these your priority.
Okay.
Government, everybody, this is the next generation. 13 to 19 is the next generation. Prioritize that group.
Okay, all right. Now we turn our attention to the dailies this morning, Thursday. What is waking up in black and white for the front pages and the back pages? Stay with us.
up in